everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of the Wrist Cheese Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmidt, and I'm joined, as always, by my good buddy. You guys know him. You'll love him, Mr. Bro Dinky. Bro, what's going on, my friend?
Yo, brother. Pretty good week. Not a lot going on. Had a little get together dinner with the dude that I do Real Men Wear Pink with the other night. So I got that kind of kicking off for the year. I just
Okay.
signed, yeah, just signed up for the page, right? We already last week we got our first watch. Hopefully we'll have I got another one kind of in the works right now. So hopefully that'll be two. And yeah,
I think
maybe I
I
can
think this could be the year of multiples, right? Like this is kind of
Yeah,
what
I've
we've
kind of
been
done
talking
like
about.
two in past years. I mean, if I could do upwards of like four, that'd be pretty cool, right? Obviously, I got some feelers out, but I know of at least two that we'll be doing, and hopefully upwards, like I said, of three or four. That'd be really, really great. And Strap Habits on board. He and I are gonna dream up something. Hopefully, shake the internet again and see who else I can bring into the fold.
I mean, I love it. I love it. I think it's certainly a good choice. A
It's
good
one of
choice.
those things. Like, how can I not? I did it one year and it was good. I did it again. It was great. I mean, I don't know where it's gonna get. I don't expect to hit that again, but I'll try.
I mean, look, like they always say, you got to shoot your shot, right?
That's it.
So,
That is it. What about you? What's going on?
not too much, man. Just got back from a long work trip. Getting settled back in, kind of getting back in the swing of things, and glad to be home. Glad to be with the family, the wife and kids. So it's here we are, another episode, another day, making it happen.
Yeah. And just like every other episode recently, we've had a ton of drops lately,
Oh my
specifically
God,
today.
yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, we
It's
are
insane.
recording Thursday, and I mean, today might as well have been like AP day or something because I think we got their entire lineup for the year today.
I, there was honestly so many references that when I refreshed our social media page today, it was literally like one blogger posted one photo, another blogger posted a different collection photo, then somebody else posted and tagged somebody else, and it was just like all of these watches were completely different, just like bam, 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 and I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of releases. There was 1159s and then new Royal Oaks, and it's like, oh, by the way, we made one with turquoise and gold. I'm like, oh, whoa, like this is like, let's pump the brakes here because this is a lot.
There was a lot. It wasn't like sometimes where they just drop a couple Royal Oaks and the only difference is like, well, this one's white gold and this one's steel. No, this was a lot of variation.
they they dropped everything. It was like, oh, you know what? We got an anniversary of the Royal Oak. Boom, Royal Oak offshore, full ceramic. I was like, what?
Yeah, so you got
Like
a
this is crazy.
Royal Oak offshore chronograph, full ceramic in black.
Yeah, again, Black's having that moment.
Black is having that moment, which we'll come back to in a minute. But so we got that bad boy. We got a white gold jumbo, and I'm gonna air quote jumbo. It's only 39 millimeters, and it's got a textured sort of bluish purple dial. You see that one?
I must have missed that one.
That one, I mean, it's probably the coolest one out of them. I think maybe the yellow gold aside, but
You said
it's
a purple dial,
it's like a purplish blue, like a midnight blue dial, and
and
it's
you
like
said jump hour.
grainy jumbo.
Oh, jumbo,
Usually the jumbo
jumbo.
reference, I believe, is 41 millimeters. This one's only
Yeah,
39, but it's still
they're
labeled
still
a
classified as a
jumbo.
jumbo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I must have missed that one then.
I think I want to say Hodinky has all of them on their Instagram if you go there.
Okay, let me double check. It was so hard to keep up because, like I
Oh, it
said,
was a ton of stuff.
it was just nonstop. It was nonstop. There's so many novelties that were released today. Way more than I ever would have expected for this early in the year. And maybe that's the new trend. Brands are just tired of waiting for when the consumer's expecting things to drop, and they're just dropping them.
Well, it'd also be interesting as a ploy to get all your stuff out, and then maybe at Watches of Wonders, you just save one or two things and you just show off what you already put out.
Oh, you're talking about this guy.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
one.
no, no, I did see this. Okay, you know what? When I first saw it, I just assumed the dial was blue and just kind of moved on from it. But you're right; it's more of like a. It's got a purpley tone to it. It's almost like a midnight blue ish.
Yeah.
It's got like some purpley and black tones to it, and the texture. I don't know what the heck they're calling it, but the texture almost looks like a shark skin. It's kind of got like that graininess to it, or like a sandpaper look to it. Very interesting. And also very interesting at the double sign.
Yeah.
It's like AP and then AP. It's like weird.
Yeah, that is weird. And looking at it originally, I thought they did Aventurine, and I said, "Oh
That's what.
crap!" That
Yeah, yeah,
I said
yeah,
that's gonna go like hard. That watch.
yeah. But
That's
it's
still cool,
not.
but it's not
It's
Aventurine.
not.
But they dropped the black offshore. They dropped that. They dropped a full gold with a turquoise stone dial, which I'm a fan of stone dials. I like the Rolex stone dials. A lot of those
Yeah,
Tiger Eye and all the different ones, Lapis, et cetera, et cetera. Like those were always some really cool references to me, and they shot up like crazy in value, unfortunately, in recent years. But I'm a big
yeah,
fan of stone dials. I like the way the stone looks on that.
yeah. And
Uh,
especially in the yellow gold.
yeah, that's gonna be sought after,
Oh,
big time.
there's no question. I mean, it's a great way to riff on the quote unquote Tiffany trend. I mean, everyone was posting over the weekend, or I guess not over the weekend. Man, I'm losing my mind. Earlier this week about LeBron's new hype wear that he was wearing. Right, he had the Tiffany Nautilus that came out last year, but then he was wearing like the Tiffany and Nike
Accent
collab.
Nikes, yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, what? Like Tiffany is now into streetwear? Like this is weird. So, but people are posting about this stuff, right? So it kind of riffs on that, style, the Tiffany Nautilus, the 5711, the Swan Song, quote unquote, of the Patek 5711, without being too derivative, like because the color is the color because that's the color of the stone. And I do like that they went with the yellow gold
yeah. It's a nice
because
contrast.
I don't think anybody's done that yet. At least not that I've seen in that terms of color combination. So I think it was well placed.
Yes, and then in addition to that, we got four. Well, really, it's two, but you get them in two colors. Code 1159s. So a
Womp womp
chronograph
womp.
in blue and sort of a stone green, and then a time only in blue and stone green. I think they're, in my opinion, I think they're better than the original just because of all the concentric circles.
Uh, eh.
I still
And
I
you are
still
missing
wouldn't.
you are missing one colorway though. There's three.
Is there a
Th-
gray?
It's
That
like
is,
a like a khaki.
I couldn't tell if that was the I couldn't tell if that was the green in just a really bad light or not.
No, no, I think it's its own version. So you have the dark blue, you have the green, and then you have the khaki. Because you'll notice when you look at the green version, the dial is dark, and when you go to the khaki, it's like a black to khaki fume almost.
I was looking back and forth at those two pictures, trying to figure out if that was the same watch in different lighting or not. I
Yeah,
had such a
yeah,
hard time because they never showed three; they only showed two.
yeah. And
It's
sometimes that could just be the fault of who got the press kit.
yeah, could be.
Who posted what or in which order they're posting. And sometimes, brands will give exclusivity to XYZ, press. So Hudunki might have the scoop on it today, and then, let's for example say tomorrow Time and Tide gets it in terms of, priority, right? So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
like Houdinki's got the first 12 hours of presentation of the product or whatever, then subsequently everybody else can get it. So you may not see all of the photos at once if they didn't decide to post them all at once. So it's kind of interesting. It's just the way the watch world works. It's not always not always an exact science. But I mean, I will say this. I think visually these 1159s seem more interesting. Um, I will say that for me personally, I hate the dial. I think that that's the one thing that I don't like about it. Um, I know it's almost kind of for me like what would be a modern take like on a traditional guilloche.
yeah.
It kind of has that motif, but you can see it's much more instead of guilloche is traditionally kind of like wave patterning or like ripple effect. This is almost like modern and technological looking. Like when I
I
look
was
at it,
gonna
I
say
think of like
industrial when before you said anything.
exactly,
That
it's
was kind of
industrial.
the thought I was thinking of.
It looks very clinical and it looks almost to me like digital. It's like
It
it's
it looks less artistic and more mechanical. Is
correct,
is the way
correct.
I see it.
So I can see that they're trying to riff on the idea of what would be a guilloche dial, which is traditionally associated with antiquated watchmaking, production, right? Like it's a historical way of doing this. To me, what the 1159 has always tried to represent for AP is, yes, we've done classical things in the past, but we're really trying to look towards the future. So we're going to make a futuristic inspired timepiece based on our classic heritage in the past. And it's kind of bridging that gap. And that's why for me personally, it never made sense because I felt like it was stylistically confused. And I've talked about this before. We've touched on it, I think probably when we first started, we talked about the 1159. Um, but it just for me, this dial is not too busy. It just I don't exactly know how to place it, but it I can't stand looking at it. And I don't know why. And I'm typically not a very picky person when it comes to something like this. I can usually overlook it, but it's like for me, it's almost like it's when I look at it from a distance, it almost looks like the dial's like vibrating. Like it's like moving so fast that it's
Yeah, I got
creating
that.
like a haze effect or like a distortion. And it kind of makes me think something's off.
It's a weird watch to place for me, especially the chronograph, because the chronograph reminds me at a distance. It reminds me of a lot of the tag Heuers that I don't really like in the bigger cases.
Like the super Carreras, like they're
It-
just jumbo sized.
yeah, it just reminds me of that, and it's a weird watch because there's nothing that offensive about it. I just don't love it.
Yeah,
That's all I can say about it. I don't really know how else to express that.
yeah. I have a good buddy of mine that's seen some of the original runs at the 1159 in person. And he's like, look, it's a very misunderstood timepiece. It's one of those watches like you really have to see to believe. And I do believe him. I mean, it's I would certainly say that if I saw this in person, I'd probably have a better appreciation for it. But there was just so many things I didn't love about the original design. The case architecture, it's partially skeletonized, but then it's really not. Different font styles. You have some with serifs and some without. It just was visually very not cohesive. And then I think the one thing that really threw me was the crystal. Instead of being like domed, it's like concave, it's like a bowl shape.
Oh, is it?
It's weird. It's so weird. So it has this weird like distortion effect. I don't know exactly know how to describe it, but I remember that was one of the initial things that people were kind of like, what? Like you made a crystal like upside down almost. It's not like,
It's
like
like the
that.
bottom of like a glass soda bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of dips
I
into
mean,
the
obviously,
center.
I've never seen one of these in person, so I wouldn't know.
It's
But
so weird. When you look at Houdinki's like chronograph post, you can kind of see how it like again, it's a digital image, so it's not going to be 100%, but yeah, their crystals are like bowl shaped.
I thought you said a totally different word there, but I understand now. I was like, damn, that's harsh. Oh, bowl shaped. I got
Bowl
it.
shaped, yes.
Damn, Schmitty.
I
All
know,
right.
I know. Coming
I
out
guess,
coming out hard at the beginning.
yeah, I guess while we were on gigantic tag Heuers, I don't like that much. They came out with a new chronograph collab with Porsche. It's a Carrera. It's gigantic. It's 44 millimeters.
This is another want for me.
It's
It's just
15.2 thick. DLC coated steel, 7 grand. It's got orange on it. It's not a hideous watch. It's just oversized, and it's a lot of what I've already seen, and it just doesn't move the needle.
no, not at all. This watch is I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it. I don't say it as often. This watch is trash.
Oof.
It's trash. I mean, this is a money grab in every sense of the word. Again, I always try to be as objective as humanly possible, and I'll always call out faults where faults can be called out. I know my favorite brand, Omega, is also very guilty of this. Sometimes they do the collaboration thing, and it can be perceived as a money grab, right? You know, the Moon Swatch was a perfect indication of this. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is just a money grab." James Bond's money grab. I get it. Anything marketing related can be interpreted as a money grab. But for me, what I hate about this watch for the Porsche design, and this is even true of the other versions that they came out with previous to this one, is it's just like, to me, it just comes across as an afterthought in the design process. You know, when you think about the Carrera, you think about the classic Porsche design, you think about things like the silhouette of a 911. Like, these are very classic elements of design that are still transcendent to today. When you think of the first ever generation of Porsches that people really started gravitating towards, you know, and where they are now, that design, that silhouette, the power, what that brand represents is so historic and classic. And to create a watch that's literally a orange monstrosity is is throwing up on the legacy that is this car, and subsequently is the watch, because the Carrera itself historically was also designed in that same way. Minimalist, sleek, slender, svelte, but timeless in its design. It's going to look good in 1965, and it's still going to look good 100 years later. We're still going to be talking about it. This Carrera is a miss. It's oversized. It's not at all well proportioned. The colors are hideous. The blending of different types of aggressive patterns and stitching and all these things, it's so gimmicky that it tarnishes both brands' reputations.
I could see that. There's a lot of look at me, I'm a car guy,
Yeah.
but like
Like,
the not in a good way, like the
yeah,
poser type of way.
exactly. And when you look at what a modern 911 Porsche costs today, and you're like, yeah, it's a $7,000 tag, they just don't compute. And the only reason why the relationship is alive is because the watch shares the same name, right? Like, that's really the only collaboration. I would have loved this watch so much more if they said, you know what, let's pay tribute and legacy to the heritage that is the Carrera for both of our brands, right? The Porsche, the Carrera watch, you know, that legacy. Let's create, you know, one of the anniversary Carreras that they just launched. You know, you do a silver panda, or you do something like that, and then you do orange accents. You know, maybe you do a big eye with an orange subdial, or something funky, but it's still restrained. You know, but you don't need aggressive stitching that's gonna match the profile of the leather seats, and like, it's just so gimmicky.
Yeah, it's trying too hard to match.
It's so trying so hard, and it's like it could have been so much more reserved than this, and it could have been so much better. You know, I mean, wasn't it just a few months ago they came out with that one with like the Carrera like on the NATO strap, like it was like Carrera. Remember, it was
Yeah.
like the white and blue one.
Hmm.
And again, it's just like it's just missing, you know. Give me a cool Carrera, like, you know, when I think about the like the Skipper, right? Like, that was a very simplistic design, you know, blue dial, and then you had like the orange and the teal accents on the sub dial. Do something similar like that and modify it for Porsche,
Yeah.
and people would be all over it, you know. But just this oversized, gargantuan, just hideous monstrosity of a timepiece is just not working out anymore. I don't know. I need to step down off my soapbox.
I also don't
Sorry,
like that
sorry,
there.
tag, but not sorry.
I also don't like that there are no actual like indices. Like you have
Yeah,
the 60 going around, but nothing else.
it just officially doesn't make sense. It's so aggressive and so ugly. And again, DLC coded steel, really? Like, couldn't even spring for a ceramic or a carbon, or just something that's like, you know, high performance. You know, it's like you're dealing with high performance luxury sports cars, some of the most well renowned and well respected sports cars in the world. and you're like, yeah, guys, DLC steals where we're at. Like,
Yeah.
if it was me, it would be create a vintage inspired Carrera, make it feel a little bit more modern, add some color flair because that is one thing that's evocative and evocative of modern luxury sports cars today, right? People are all about bright greens and lime yellows and like it's fluorescent, vibrant colors. Okay, so you subtly work that into the overall design, but you still keep the classic Carrera, you still keep the classic silhouette, but maybe you do it in a modern material like a carbon,
Yeah,
which we
carbon
know
case
that
would be
they can
sick.
do. That would be sick, you know? But why cheapen it with this crap? Hey, but you know what? It has a steering wheel rotor.
Oh no.
The rotor's on the steering wheel.
I did not even make it that
All
far.
right.
Let's just leave it at that.
The rotor is a steering wheel. I just
Ouch.
it's again, it's so tchotchke and it kills me. It really just killed me because if it wasn't, I'll say this: this watch, if you removed the Porsche relationship, arguably would not be a bad watch. It's funky, it's cool in terms of the colorway, the black and orange. Okay, but as soon as you enter into that relationship of what this watch is supposed to represent, two extremely iconic brands for their own design and their own heritage, you just completely just crap all over their legacy. Both of them, you know. But if you had removed the Porsche relationship from this and just released this as a watch, like, hey, this is a fun, cool, like sports watch we wanted to make, I think people would probably be more apt to buy it because it is edgy. It's bigger. It's, you got more flash going on. It's a car thing, whatever. But to put Porsche on this and it's literally on the freaking bezel,
Yeah. Bright orange.
it's it's a stain on the legacy of the brand, man. I'm sorry.
Eek. All right. Well, while we're with brand
You didn't
legacy,
have to go so hard.
while we're with brand legacy, Grand Seiko actually just put out a copy of, I believe it's their first wristwatch.
Yeah,
It's the SBGW 295, celebrating 110 years in wristwatches, and it's a 38 millimeter case. The old one was 35. It's got a Urushi lacquer dial, 24
beautiful.
karat gold indices. So those
Yep,
things must be shiny,
yep.
right? It's a hand wine movement, which I thought was interesting. It's the
Hmm.
9S hand wine. It's limited to 500 pieces, and I believe it's titanium case.
Ooh, okay. That I didn't know.
Pretty sure I saw it was titanium
Okay,
case.
well that would also make sense for the price point too, because 13.8.
13.8 is hefty.
Yeah, it's hefty. But you know what? I'll say this. This is how you pay tribute to your legacy. This is literally the complete antithesis of what we were just talking about with tech. I get it. It's been updated for modern audiences, right? It's a little bit larger size. Maybe it's a different material, titanium. But this is how you celebrate the legacy that is what you were in the past while making it relevant and attractive for the modern audience. Okay. And again, it's kind of what we just already addressed, right? You follow the same silhouette. You have some subtle changes here. 24 karat gold indices. The original probably wasn't that, right? The original probably wasn't this deep, inky black. What was the dial name?
Urushi is the
Urushi
lacquering.
dial.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's absolutely gorgeous. This dial, and then you throw in a cool material like a titanium or something like that. If it is actually titanium, I have that I didn't see, but it does look a little bit darker in color from the press photos that I'm looking at. Yes, it says brilliant hard titanium. Okay.
It's my stripper
So
name.
now joining us on the stage, brilliant hard titanium. Okay. Anyway, gorgeous watch. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous watch. I mean, the lacquered, the enamel lacquered 24 karat gold indices, which are hand painted. They're not applied, they're painted onto the dial. Some guy is literally painting this 24 karat gold onto each one of these dials by hand. That to me, again, is just a level of care and excellence that has been synonymous with Grand Seiko for many, 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 many years. We all know this. We talk about it at length, but this shows you how you celebrate your heritage and how you pay tribute to it while looking forward to the future whatever Carrera, Tag Heuer, and Porsche did, it's it holds nothing to something like this.
Yeah, it is unbelievable how this is exactly the checklist you just went down.
And
But
that
on
was
the
completely unscripted
no,
too.
yeah, and completely on the opposite side of the aisle here. Yeah, I mean it's probably a little plain for some people, but to be a recreation of your first wristwatch, I mean, I think you expect that.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of these brands they had super humble beginnings. I know Seiko was one of them. It's like these brand like we often think about the luxury era of watch collecting, but you have to remember too, back in the day, it was just about making a great quality product, something that was reliable, was legible, that was functional, most importantly, as a wristwatch. It wasn't about beating precision accuracy awards. It wasn't about, being made of the most exclusive, most expensive materials. It was about making something that was functional, reliable, and accurate for the everyday person. Day in, day out, this watch would work. And this is a watch that, in that very conservative way, celebrates that idea. And to me, that's why this watch is special. And you know me, I'm not the biggest Grand Seiko guy,
Yeah,
but I can appreciate something that's really beautiful. And this is. I mean, when you see the up close shots of these markers, it's almost like somebody dusted gold onto them. They have a shimmer effect, even though it's just paint, right? You can see what almost looks like specks of gold dust
I would have
into
to
the paint.
assume that's how it works. There has to be
It
some sort of like flakes or
it's unreal. It's unreal. And I know for a fact some guy at Grand Seiko who's probably trained to paint dials for 10,000 hours of his life, just sitting behind a desk, probably has a hunchback bigger than Quasimodo painting dials for since he was like 5 years old. That's probably what's happened. And here we are. We're getting something truly special and beautiful. The only complaint that I have personally about this watch is I don't like the strap because it looks like to me like a textile strap.
yeah, it's kind of weird. I know you get a deployant in titanium, but
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the deployment, but it
I
almost looks like
I
this
don't
is
know
like
what
a
it's
like
made
a
out of. Yeah,
cordura, like a nylon almost, like a textile.
yeah,
I would have thought for sure this would have been put on like a nice classy alligator or calfskin leather. That to me would have been chef's kiss. But
yeah. You would think.
as we know, I mean, what's a strap change, right? Like it's nothing. That's not a make or break for the watch.
Yeah. And I guess since we're on Black Seikos, I'll continue with that. I don't know if you caught these. There was sort of the Blake Seiko Blackout Edition kind of got extended. There's sort of
Yeah.
limited run of blacked out Seikos with the kind of super bright blue loom. It got extended to the 62 Moss type case.
Mm-hmm,
That is the
mm-hmm.
SLA 067. There's an Alpinist, which is the SPB 337. And then there is a Slim Willard case, which is the SPB 335.
That
And
one's my
each one
favorite.
got the all black treatment, bright blue loom. Uh, Surprisingly, I'm not a huge fan of the Alpinist because I really do love that watch. I don't know if it
It
works
doesn't look
here.
good it doesn't look good murdered out.
I don't know if it works here. The 62
Mhm.
Moss looks really cool, and I like the Willard, even though I already have one, so I don't need to buy one. But
I
my only gripe here is that they didn't go with the affordable. There's two different 62 Moss stylings they have. They have one
mhm,
that's expensive
mhm,
that goes for
mhm,
a few
mhm.
thousand, and they have one that goes for like 800 or 900. They went with
Yeah.
the expensive one, which sucks because if this was in the cheaper case, I would have went after it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think my 60, because I think the difference was the handset, right? One was like a big broad arrow handset that was the lower tier price point.
Even now, there's sort of this one that's in the H case. It looks almost identical to the more upscale one, but there's just differences movement wise and
Okay,
finishing
I got
wise
you.
that
Okay.
that's just a little different. It just stinks. If they would have put the so like for example, I think it's the SPB like 149, 143. Those are in the cheaper cases, and then you have the SLA lines, which are in the more expensive cases.
I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, you obviously know more about this than I do, but I will say this. I overall, I think all three watches are inherently good looking. I think I would agree with your first point. I think the Alpinist, you know, having collected watches as long as I have and been a fan of the Alpinist itself, the original green dot Alpinist, this to me just it misses, especially because it's on a bracelet too. I don't know. I'm just so used to seeing the Alpinist on a strap, like OEM, that when I see it on this like blacked out tactical bracelet, it to me, and I don't want to disparage this watch, it just comes across as cheap, almost like just visually, not actually quality of the timepiece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's something
Uh,
that just doesn't make sense there.
it's just not congruent. I don't know what it is. It's just not congruent. I do love the 62 Moss. Does that one only come on the NATO? Because I'm only seeing it on
I think
NATO.
so.
Okay. I would have to say my favorite is the Slim Willard. I love that subtle pop of red, on the second hand, the
Yeah,
stoplight
that
second hand.
stoplight second is so good.
I just that one little nod detail for me sells it. That and I think the little 20-minute grayed out bezel section as opposed to the all black bezel. I think it's just different enough to feel very utilitarian, very tactical, very like stealthy but still badass enough that I would look at adding something like that to my collection. It's cool. And again, we talked about black, right? Like we've been beating this horse dead. Black is having a moment again. If you guys are on the fence about getting a black watch, now seems to kind of be the time to do it because a lot of people are coming out with some cool offerings and all different price points to have black in the collection again. So I think it's cool. But the Slim Willard of all three would be my choice.
Yeah, the only other thing I'm noticing, and this might just be from the pictures because obviously we didn't hold these in our hands. It looks like the Alpinist has a kind of a grainy black dial. The Willett has what appears to be a dark gray dial. And that might just be the picture because of the contrast with the bezel, but it
Yeah, yeah.
looks a little lighter. And then the 62 Moss has sort of a, I don't even know what you'd call this. So it's black, but it almost
Oh,
looks
it's
like
like striated.
it looks like a truck ran over it. Like it looks like there's tire treads on it.
Yeah, I literally just now noticed that since I was pulling up a bigger photo of it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that's a glare
I
or if
don't think
that's
it is.
actually the watch. Yeah, no, it is, bro. It's striated. And you said it right, dude.
It looks like a truck ran over.
It's a this is the Seiko 62 Moss tire tread.
Yeah.
It's taking the tread rubber
You know,
straps
they
to a
make a
whole the whole different meaning.
there's a tire tread strap, so you might as well just put
Yeah,
them together.
that's what I'm saying. Taking the tire tread strap to a whole different meaning. That's so weird.
Yep.
Well, now I definitely don't like the 62 Moss as much. Yeah, I guess my pick is still the Slim Willard for
Weird
sure.
choice. Weird choice.
Yeah, and I don't know what the tie-in is. But it literally looks like a piece of concrete that, a rubber truck tire was floored over and it leaves like the tire tread impression onto the concrete. But the whole dial's black, so you're basically having like a textured section of the black and then kind of a smooth black section in between those, and it makes a striping effect that is just not.
And there's no real rhyme or reason to it. Some are thicker, some are thinner, some are
Yeah,
angled. I don't know. Just
that's
weird.
just weird. Yeah, that's super weird. I
Yeah.
mean, you could call it the tiger stripe. That's kind of a cool name if you wanted to salvage it, but
The
maybe
skid
the
mark. I mean,
the Seiko skid mark. Oh my god.
see, I tell people, man, I love to burn my own favorite
I'm
brands.
the same way. I'm the same way.
That's what I do. I just
Seiko 62 Moss skid mark. You heard it here
heard it here.
first. Go out and buy your skid marks, ladies and gentlemen. It
And
does
then
ro- it does roll off the tongue.
they also dropped something for you, my friend. I don't know if you caught these. There's a solar diver GMT in what looks like
Yes.
the sumo case.
Yeah.
Four renditions. You got a black, a Pepsi, a blue, and a green that are a little more funky and have a little more, fluorescent accents to it. But this is what you've been asking for: diver bezel, internal GMT scale.
Yeah.
These are, I believe, solar quartz, but they do have a jumping hour hand.
Ooh, I
Yeah,
didn't know about the
so
jumping hour hand.
interesting little package here.
Yeah, I think I have been asking for this. I would have preferred it had been a mechanical movement personally, especially because we know that Seiko can do it.
Yeah.
Right? We saw it with the 5KX series. Obviously, it's possible. So that was kind of my own just reservation about it because historically, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, bro, the Sumo was only ever mechanical, right?
I believe so.
So it just seems to me odd to choose a very historic line for Seiko that was traditionally an automatic timepiece and put in a solar quartz movement. That's my only beef with it.
I'm trying to remember if there were
Aesthetically,
other solar sumos or not.
aesthetically, I like it. I think the handset's cool, especially it's the new modern sumo handset. I could have loved maybe a little bit fatter Seiko GMT hand, but it's very much in line with the rest of their Seiko GMT hands if you're familiar with those. So, from Grand Seiko to some of the other ones that they've offered in the higher tiers that, are just below Grand Seiko. So, that's a minor quibble. Color codes I think are great. You have that kind of like emeraldy, turquoisey green. You have that blue, like you mentioned, with kind of like the Caribbean blue accents to it. I think overall they did a good job. There's just a few quibbles for me that could have maybe taken this to the next level.
You know what? I think they had a solar sumo. I think it was a chronograph,
Okay.
if
Okay.
I remember.
But that was more recent too, no?
Yeah, yeah. That wasn't a historic piece. That was a
Okay.
pretty
Okay.
recent thing.
Okay. Yeah. But the original sumo was only ever mechanical to what I remember.
I think so too. Yeah.
So if that was the case for me, it just seems like a little bit of a misstep. Even, because we know that they have the capability, and for me, I would have much rather spent maybe a few $100s more to get a nicer, version of maybe the 5KX series movements, in maybe like a higher finished level, like a Pro Specs line or something kind of like in that line. Because I can't imagine it would be that much more difficult to create a little bit more elevated version of what's in the 5KX GMT. You know,
Yeah, but you know what? They're leaning into quartz recently.
I've been noticing that, and I really think it started around the time that you got your 38, like that Solar
Yeah, the
38.
little solar diver. Yeah.
Yeah, the mini diver. I'm just like,
Well, they did those. They did Arnie's. They have
yeah,
these, right? They've been doing a lot of solar quartz, and I think it's just I want to say it's just based on utility. You know what it is? I think they realized that a lot of people buy their watches to not necessarily wear every single day.
yeah,
And so the solar battery lasts like months, which is
true.
nice. So that'll always be on. It's an easy recharge. You throw it on the windowsill, no big deal. And it's going to be right where you left it off. You're going to pick it up, grab it, go, and you're on your way. And if you
Yeah,
are going to be one of those people who wears a Seiko to be active, God bless. Good luck killing that thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they are literally tough as nails watches. I mean, and they run. I mean, Seikos just like these little tiny mini Seikos just run forever. I can still pick up my 32-year-old, pre SKX. This was a
Was
6309,
Yeah.
but it was the 6309, but it had the transitional reference, so technically it was a 7002. Um, but anyway, it just I could pick it up at 32 years old and give it a shake because you have to shake these old Seikos. There's
Yep.
no
The old
hand winding
Seiko
them, right?
shake.
You do the old Seiko shake as per the operation instruction guide manual, and it still runs. It doesn't have the best power reserve or anything like that. So there aren't any great Seiko watchmaker guys out there in the U.S. Please let me know because it is a very special watch to me, very sentimental, and I would love to have it running in tip-top shape. So if you guys have any connects, hit us in the DMs at Wrist Cheese Radio on Instagram.
I want to say maybe DC Vintage maybe services, if I'm not mistaken.
Does he?
I think.
If he does, bro, you need to let me get with him
Put a feeler out.
and you on that
See what happens.
because I want that watch to be in tip top shape, and I don't care. what it means. It's just too sentimental to me. And again, it's completely irrational. It doesn't make sense, but it's too sentimental for me to ever let that watch out of my collection. It'll never go.
All right, and then last up we have interesting bit of tea. So Synchron is back with another military watch in collaboration with Poseidon. You've probably seen Poseidon on Doxes before.
Yeah.
They are a Swedish dive outfitter. They made the first gas-proof dry suit,
Yeah.
Poseidon, and they're teaming up for an ice diver.
Yes.
So think Synchron military, but whiter dial, bright yellow accents instead of the orange. Uh, I believe you're getting. It said you're getting an upgraded movement,
Yes, you are. Yeah.
right? And then a little extra protection.
Yeah.
And then
It's
they
using a
switched
KISS
a
system.
couple. They switched a couple little things. They changed the hour hand. It's not
Yep.
that blocky little hour hand. It's more of just like a
It's
skinny.
it's honestly it's honestly Omega Ploprov style. Like that is
Oh,
the
you're right.
handset.
You're right. That is
It's
it.
the handset.
Yep,
Yeah, for sure.
it's the exact handset.
So it's like the skinny fence post, for the hour hand, and you had that big, fat broadsword, minute hand. It's totally Ploprov style.
That is. So this is getting interesting because we know there was a tussle with Doxa. We know Doxa's work with Poseidon. I'm curious what Doxa's relationship with him is like now.
I really have no idea. This is like you said, there's some tea going on here. Because there was that whole thing, right? Like, I mean, you know, Synchron released their military and it was met with great fanfare. And everyone, Jason Heat was covered, James Stacy, like a lot of people that are influential in the tool watch, dive watch space were really all about this because it was historically, part of that history. And for those of you who don't remember, at one point in time, Doxa as a company was owned by Synchron. This was like in the 70s and 80s, I believe, if I remember correctly. Somebody, can correct me in the comments on our post when we drop this on Monday. But it was there. They were part and affiliated of the Synchron group at the time. Eventually, both entities kind of went their own way. And one of the guys that really helped to resurrect Doxa eventually left to basically go resurrect Synchron, right? Is that's kind of the idea, bro? And this guy's brought on Synchron, Aqua Dive,
Aquas, yeah,
Isis,
yeah, one
or
of
Aqua
those.
is it Aqua Star?
Aquastar, Aquadive. I always get them confused.
Yeah, Aqua Star, I think. Isofrane and Tropic. So like those brands are under the Synchron group, which is completely separate from modern Doxa today. So there's gotta be some beef because Doxa just came out with a quote unquote last year the official Doxa Army
Army.
watch, which
Yep.
was the original name, right? It wasn't the military; it was the originally called the Army, and they had even flexed that they had to go back through Swiss government orders and all these things that they had the true provenance of creating this watch and calling it the Army. It was their brand's history. And there was, I remember we had that, we took photos of that social media beef between the two brands. There
Yeah.
was like the subtle shade between the comments of the two brands on their posts
Only
on
one
social media.
deserves your trust.
Yeah, it's like I'm like,
Yep.
whoa, shots are fired. So this has to be a retaliatory fire back from Synchron, aimed directly at Doxa, because they did just launch the Army again. Especially the initial one was in black ceramic in collaboration with Watches of Switzerland, and then eventually later on in the year they released the steel and bronze, kind of two-tone variations in great colorways, but mind you, and they were met with very good success as far as I understand. And now, not that far along, we have a new launch of the military, which is already sold out, by the way, according to the Synchron website. Um, we got a new military in quotes ice diver in collaboration with Poseidon, which is historically collaborated with Doxa directly. This is
Feels uncomfortable.
very
Feels like
uncomfortable.
when you watch your friends who are in a relationship get in a fight.
Yeah, Yeah, it really does. I mean, I'll say this. I love the watch. I think it looks good. I like the handset. It's different enough. I love the dial colors and how they incorporated the Poseidon yellow. But I love that they did it with kind of like a more muted tone. Like the even though the white is like a softer color, it it doesn't stand out as much. It's weird. I don't know exactly how to explain it. But I also love that the press photos they're using the light gray isoprene and the light gray tropic straps to kind of
Yeah,
highlight
that
that
ice
ice
diver. Yep.
diver look. It's so clean. It's so good looking, and oh, I love it. If I could get my hands on it, I would, but I can't because it's sold out. Um, but it's
As per the hobby.
yeah. I mean, again, this is maybe there was like a few that they were gonna sell initially in the because there's an introductory price at 990. So maybe they had a small batch reserved for those models, and once they sold through them, then that was going to be the price, and then they would maybe officially open the collection at the regular price for retail at 1200.
Okay.
So maybe that's what it is.
I think they did that the first go around too.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. But it's a very cool watch. I hope for those of you that can get your hands on one and get one, I hope you're happy with them because I think it looks very cool. And it's
Yeah.
not a whole yellow dial like the other ones.
Right. Okay, before we get into topic, this is sort of a little transitional story that just kind of came about. You and I kind of came across. Seiko is doing a little project that they had previously done. It went away for a while. Now it's back. It's an exhibit. It's sort of art, and it's in Japan in the Harajuku district, and it's running through I think the middle of this month. But they have designers both from the company and outside the company, and different artists. I guess playing with old versions of their watches and kind of reimagining them for today, I guess. And there's a cool bunch of different ones. Some of them are popular, some of them are less popular. They have a Seiko Monaco, which is that square case chronograph, in case nobody knows what that is. The
Yeah.
Sonar, which they just released a newer one this year with sort of the translucent dial. They have
Mm-hmm.
an old King Seiko. They have a couple people riffed on the tuna. One even there's a ceramic ball. It's an old Seiko digital. It's a goofy looking watch, but it's like a funny looking. It looks like those little robots that they sold not that long ago that were like a toy. It's literally just a ball. But anyway, it's a digital watch, and then sort of like a women's like bead bracelet type of watch. Anyway, they riffed on all of these and kind of made them super different. Some of them they just sort of changed the colors and modernized them a little bit. They took the King Seiko and they put 20 different sides on it.
Okay.
And I think Zaratsu polished it. So I think it's just going to be like crazy. Two different renditions of the tuna were probably the most interesting. One of them, the person took and made it into sort of like a wearable where you loop the it's attached to like a piece of clothing and you loop it through almost like a button. So I guess
Okay.
you wear it sort of on you as opposed to on your wrist. And then the other ones, this one was crazy. They took and made it into a batch of kids' watches. It looks like the Party on steroids. But these look super cool. Like I would totally get these for my kids if these were official model. There was like a pink one, a yellow one, and a blue one, and they're coated in some kind of a latex, rubber, whatever. But they're tunas, and so they have like the little shroud on them still and everything. It's really cool looking.
I gotta see
If
this.
you have a
I gotta
chance,
see
go and
this.
look at it.
Oh, the Adventure Kids watch.
Yes, like that would
Whoa.
be a sick watch for a kid. I know as an adult the tuna's a little goofy, but for a kid, it's perfect
Yeah, you're right. It looks like a Parchy Pal or like
on
a Swatch
steroids,
on
man.
steroids. Yeah. Prospects of Marine Master Professional is a professional diver's watch for people working in harsh environment of deep sea. The rebirth, this professional diver's watch has undergone a rebirth and transformation into a watch designed especially for children. The watch features a tough protective structure, allowing children to play in a careful manner. An accordion-shaped strap that is easy to pull on and off, and a rotating bezel that allows the wearer to set time for every social occasion. Every detail of the watch is constructed for children who enjoy playing actively. We hope that many children will wear it as their first watch in life, I would totally buy this. And you, as a Seiko guy, you
And
definitely have to get it if it
I
ever becomes a
think
real thing.
if I remember from the picture, I think that's the 1,000 meter version.
It's so cool. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's based off the 1,000 meter.
Like,
Yeah.
what a sick beater for a kid.
I mean, I don't know if this one would actually be 1,000 meters,
No, I know they might have,
but
messed
it's
around with the
totally, yeah,
case and everything,
it's
but
totally based off the 1,000 meter
yeah.
version.
So just super cool. I wish I could get my hands on some of those.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember when I sent you the initial like kind of explanation about this, you're like, this is very interesting. So it's cool to see that, they're doing some cool stuff and bringing back some original designs and making them fresh and new
Yeah,
for
some were a
the
little less
modern.
cool than others, but some were neat.
Yeah, yeah. The timeless radiance though is pretty insane.
Yeah, it's the King Seiko.
Yeah. With all the sides, it's just like you get a side, you get a side, you get a side, you get Zeratsu, you get Zeratsu, you get Zeratsu. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, it's a little overkill, but they tried to go, I guess, balls to the wall on that one.
I mean, I get it. I get it. Shoot your shot.
Yeah, yeah. All right, and I guess since we're talking reimagine, bringing things back from the past, we can go on to our last little bit here, which is if you saw the articles about the collectibles collection from JLC,
Yep.
in celebration of their 190th anniversary, they are bringing back a selection of watches that they are restoring and certifying from
Hmm.
heritage models, and they're a pretty penny. We've seen this from the likes of Zenith. I think Vacheron's done it. I think Cartier's done it. A few other people too. But they're going to give you certifications and extracts and things like that. They're taking these models. They're going to make them pristine. They can remachine parts that have failed on them, and you're going to get them pretty much as mint as you possibly can. And
Yeah.
you're paying a premium for that, sometimes upwards of double what maybe market value might be. But they're on the JLC site, and apparently they're going to be continuously rotating. They're going to start with 12, and
Hmm.
then I guess as they sell or as they feel appropriate, they're going to rotate ones in and out.
Yeah, because they'll have to find new inventory and everything like that. Because obviously these watches you can't just pull out the vault. So it's an interesting project. Like you said, we've seen this most recently with Zenith. I think it was probably last year, the year before they released their Icons collection.
Yes.
Where this was kind of a similar thing. They were going to go out and scour the interwebs and find collectors that had these watches in great condition, restore them carefully, and then resell them as products that could be inspected, archived and given provenance through the brand, which I think from a collector standpoint is ultimately one of the biggest challenges in buying vintage is just
True.
how do you know what you're getting, and what better place to get something like that than from the actual manufacturer that created it originally. And I think that speaks volumes for brands that are willing to do this because I'll be honest with you, finding these watches, one is a challenge in and of itself. Two, there's so many things to have to vet, inspect, service, all of these things. I mean, it's crazy. And even if something was, let's say, new old stock, right? Like some of these watches that they've talked about claim to be, even let's say something was new old stock, you could literally, given the age of something, we're talking, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years old in some cases, you know, parts on this could literally turn to dust by
Yeah, just from moving. Yeah.
just trying to remove them. I mean, the hands could just fall apart.
It just disintegrate.
Yeah. Because now you've exposed it to atmospheric conditions that it hasn't had to experience in 100 years or 40 years or 50 years. Like the loom can just vaporize. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong in doing something like this. And as you guys know, for many high end collectors of vintage, those are big no nos. Dials need to be correct.
Well, they did say that they would be leaving dials and cases as much as they can
Yeah.
untouched.
Yeah. Which again, I mean, again, that just speaks to the level of care that these brands are willing to go to. And right off the bat, you're dealing with the highest levels of master watchmakers for these respective companies because these are people that have an incredible skill that even your standard watchmaking graduate will just simply not possess. Um, Being able to reverse engineer and recreate new tools or new parts for watches that have since long been retired is a feat in and of itself. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm excited for this. I think it's a cool program. I wish my favorite brand would get into it, but as we've seen recently with things like Speedmasters and stuff, like it's really hard to put a value estimation on some of these products because you really just don't know where the market can be at some point. And I think that that's ultimately the biggest problem I have with it is like, how do you really know what a fair price is for these things?
Yeah, impossible to know.
You know, like market conditions change. Do the prices change as reflective of the market? You know, like is it really worth $40,000 for a G381 Chronomaster? Like I don't know. I don't or El Primero. Like I don't know. I really don't have the answer for that. But you know, if the market changes tomorrow, does Zenith readjust the price for that? Because now you're
Yeah,
not going to
that's
sell it at
tough.
$40,000. Do you have to sell it at $20,000 because now the market has received that, you know, that watch is no longer being valued that high. So that's the biggest reason why so many brands don't get into CPO and don't get into pre-owned because of that. If you buy all these pieces at high levels when the cost is high for these products and the market is healthy, when that changes, what do you do? Do you take the loss? Do you liquidate? You know, there's so many different factors, right? What's the overall usage of this, you know, in terms of age? How did the previous owner wear it? Does it have all the things it's supposed to have? Box, papers, you know, has it been serviced? Was it serviced properly or was it serviced through unauthorized means? There's so many areas of gray variable here that makes it very difficult. So I will say this, give credit where credit is due. The brands that are willing to do this and take ownership of this and having their museum teams figure this stuff out, kudos to you because I know it's a big undertaking. The rest of us who are just kind of sitting, you know, by the sidelines, seeing if this is going to work out, we'll see. I guess. Well, I mean, what do you think, bro?
I appreciate it for sure. I'm definitely not priced into any of this, but I appreciate
I
what they
mean, neither,
do.
neither am I. I'm not going to sit here and say that I am. That would be a complete farce.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be really cool if some maybe not so expensive brands did it, and then you'd be paying maybe a couple grand for something that's restored as opposed to 40,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
on something that was originally like a throwaway diver or something that they restore up and it looks good. And all right, maybe you pay $2,000, $3,000 for it, but it's mint condition, working like a charm, and there's not so many floating around in that condition anymore. Okay, I guess that makes a little more sense.
yeah.
And it's a little more accessible, but I guess everybody be all over it. I don't know. It's a hard thing to gauge as far as demand and the supply and the ability to be able to perform it. But I like it. I like it as an idea. I really like vintage watches in general, especially
Hmm.
sort of the more iconic ones. So it
Yeah.
speaks to
And,
me.
and again, they're focusing on very popular models.
Did you get a
You
chance
know,
to check out any of them?
yeah, I mean, I was looking at I looked at the icons collection, obviously from Zenith. Most of them are going to be, you know, El Primero, you know, chronographs, you know, Chronomaster Sport, you know, not before Chronomaster Sports, but you know, Chronomasters, right? That kind of design. So that's cool. And then when you look at the JLC, I mean, you have, diver watches, you have diver world timer versions.
Yeah, some
There's
cool
some
stuff. Some
Memovox models.
some cool stuff I never knew about. I don't know if you call it this one. It was a Memovox parking alarm.
Parking alarm. Let me see. Oh, is that the one with the two dials on it?
It's got a blue P in the middle, a blue square with a P,
Oh, I see it now.
and you set the alarm so that you don't get a ticket.
Yeah,
It's so funny. Like that
yeah,
was an actual complication.
yeah, yeah. Back when we used to have to do parking meters all the time.
Like how hysterical. I was like, oh, it's actually like a cool antiquated little complication there.
I mean, that's it's funny. Like when I was in sales, that's what I used to tell people to use their Chronos for. You
Some
know,
parking meters.
yeah. I mean, you might have 15 minutes, you might have 30 minutes. Why not? As soon as you get out of the car, you throw out money in the parking meter. You do it on your app or whatever you do today. Start the chronograph, so physically when you should be back to refill the meter or to add more money, whatever it might be. You know, I mean, there's so many people in today's modern world that have never had to pay a parking meter before who have no idea about this. But it's so cool, like you said. I mean, it having looked at it, which I didn't pay attention to that one initially, but having looked at it, it kind of reminds me of like the Domino's Pizza Box Rolex.
A little bit.
It's just just like a snapshot in time that it was just like it was just there. It made sense for the time, and it's kind of cool as a kitchen novelty today. And for me, obviously, it's always going to be very cool. But um, especially when you think about like how serious of a brand JLC really is,
Yeah, that's why.
and then for them to kind of be like, we're gonna juxtapose this idea with this complication. But again, man, as I've said before, it just kind of goes back to everyone was making good watches for practicality and for usability and function and benefiting somebody's lifestyle.
Yeah, it was just cool. I went through and I was all the usual suspects: Reverso, Geophysic, Memo boxes, couple divers. One of them I didn't even know about. And then I come across this one and I'm like, is that an alarm watch? And I was like, what is that? I was like, is that a parking meter watch?
Yep.
It's neat. It's just cool. It's just a different
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And there's people out there who are gonna get this stuff, and I hope you enjoy them because I would love to say that I could drop 40,000, 50,000, even let's say $20,000 right now
Right.
on something like this. I would love to, but I can't. But I know somebody will. I know you guys will enjoy it. And if you're out there and you listen to the show, hey, kudos to you, man. And we would love to see photos of it and get
You can
hands on
send
with
it.
it
You
if
can
we
send it
could.
our way. It's fine. It's cool. Don't worry
Get
about it.
hands on with it if we could. But no, I mean, shout out to you guys. There's one of the watches I'm looking at right now. They already sold it. So it's the Master Mariner Deep Sea, which is like the
That was a cool one.
yeah, it was a super compressor case. Internal rotating bezel, diver, very cool, very 70s, late 60s, 70s. My favorite though, I think, is the Memovox Polaris 2. It's kind of like that like giant squale
Yep,
case.
I saw that.
Oh, that turquoisey blue dial on that original Blue Tropic is everything. Everything. If there's any micro brand companies listening to this, go take a look at this photo and recreate a modern micro brand watch with that colorway. Because that colorway is very cool. Very, very, very cool.
Yeah, and also, I think I saw it was a triple calendar on there too, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find things with like exciting dates and things very interesting because of the time they came from. Like now everything's digital, whatever. But like when you have to align so many things, when you think about like a perpetual calendar or annual calendar, you have to align so many things to hit properly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and like it can't fail. Like it has to be precise all the time. And I don't know if that's more or less difficult just based on setting some gears and yada yada, but I don't know. It seems impressive to me, and it's just a crazy thing to think about that it could stay so accurate for so long.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I believe all of these are sold. I'm
Wow,
looking at it right now. I'm
wow,
pretty sure every single model is sold.
wow.
Everyone I've clicked on, it says inquire by phone or sign up for the next edition, which would leave me to believe that they've all been spoken for. Let me see if the ladies version has. It's probably the only one that hasn't, but who knows?
And they give
Nope,
it to you on a new
nope, they
strap,
sold it.
and you get a book of the collectibles with it.
Yeah,
So
it comes with a coffee table book, which is
that's pretty
so
neat.
cool. Very, very cool. Oof, the reverso. I don't even know why I checked. I knew it was gonna be
Nah,
sold. That
that was probably
that
the first one.
reverso is like Havana Nights, baby. Just
Yeah.
rolled up into a wristwatch.
Yep.
The only one that's available right now is the Memovox Polaris.
They're gonna say parking meter.
No, the parking meter is long sold. The Memovox Polaris. So it's a super compressor case with alarm. 60,000 US. This is the same dial that they took the inspiration for when they relaunched the Polaris collection just, a couple years ago. But this is that black dial, super compressor case, alarm, diving watch, $60,000 US. Um, don't walk, run, run to the JLC website to buy this watch.
To the bank.
Yeah. Maybe they do wire transfer. Who knows?
They probably do.
You can just swing it. Oh, the Geophysic is also still available.
Okay.
So there you go. An original 1958 Geophysic and a Memovox diver. Last two, baby. Last two.
Yeah, and so I guess we'll see going forward if anybody else kind of picks up on this or not. But definitely a cool novelty. I like that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And let me ask you this before we wrap up. Is there any brand specifically that you would love to see do this? Maybe outside of these big high end brands? I think I have a couple that I would love to see it.
I mean, obviously, I would love to do Seiko just because there's so many that have been just messed with over
Yeah,
time and
yeah.
have just been frankened or damaged. It
Seiko
would
would
be
be so good.
it would be cool to see them take some very iconic pieces, even if it wasn't the more common ones. Like I know the older Willards go for a lot and things like that, but I'm talking obscure references. Like when I was talking to Nick about the actual Bruce Lee
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the Hong Kong day wheel, like that one, like how he sort of does that in his own right. But to see them do it and put their own spin on it and everything would be really neat, especially because they have access to all their own parts and everything, and they could obviously take creative licensing however they want with it. But that would be a big one for me. Um, I mean, I'd like to see Omega do it. I'd like to see them do it with the older stuff, the older, the 50s Seamasters and Constellations and
Yeah, I
things
mean,
like that.
I think that would be very cool. I know Omega doesn't have a thing where they sell this stuff, but they do have the um certificate
I
of
know they'll certify it.
authenticity.
Yeah, I know they'll certify
Well,
it.
so in the past, they used to have the extraction of archives, which all brands do basically now. It's pretty standard.
Yeah,
But a couple of years ago, they added the certification of authenticity, or certificate of authenticity, where you can literally send in the watch, and Switzerland will take it apart, not service it per se, but they'll inspect it visually to ensure that all the components are original to that timepiece from that era in which it was produced. And then they systematically photograph every aspect of the movement with high res photos, all of these things. And then they issue you a documentation that's basically an extraction of archives. So it gives you production dates, things like that. But ultimately, it certifies that this is a legitimate timepiece. All the parts are original and it's guaranteed by the Omega Museum, which is a little bit different than what some of these brands are doing, because they're checking the watches out and they're making sure they're good. But this is like a document that's issued by Omega if you do this service, that specifies it's all correct and original, and nothing was changed. So I think it's right around $1,000 for that service, because it does have to be shipping in Switzerland, and master watchmakers have to carefully examine your timepiece, things like that. But it's kind of cool, the paperwork that comes back with it. So
yeah, that and anybody who does old military stuff, anybody who did a Dirty Dozen, I would like to see.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
anything like IWC, anybody like that, I would like
yeah.
to see their old stuff because
I was thinking about
it
this. I've seen
it's
this a
historic.
lot. I've seen this a lot recently. I know they're not like super well known for like a lot of their vintage stuff, but like Oris, if you follow them on social, they keep doing these like little mini snapshot moments of like watches that come in for servicing that are all busted, and they kind of like do like a good 60 seconds of like how they serviced it.
Nice.
I mean, because it's Oris is a decently old company. They're not some of the old. It's not one of the oldest in the world, but they have a pretty cool history, and they have some cool, well loved watches that they've kind of featured on their social. And I think it would be kind of cool because Oris is, as we know, is climbing up in price point every single year. And to be able to offer kind of a specialty piece or something that was a little bit more esoteric or rare for the brand from back in the day, maybe a couple of decades ago, I think would be very cool. I
Yeah,
could
they
see
they kind
I
of do
could
their
see
own
them
thing,
jive with
so
it.
I can see them
Yeah.
doing that.
I mean, Josh is kind of doing his own thing too, and what they're doing at Oris here in the US is pretty amazing. But I could see them being funky enough to do something like that.
It's an idea.
There you go. Heard it here.
All right. And with that, we can close this one out. Episode 67. We'll catch you next week. I know we got some stuff lined up, maybe another guest or two coming in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, I'll have some more details on giveaways, raffles, etc. as well. Till then, Schmitty, be good. I'll catch you on the flip side. Listeners, have a good one.
Take care.